Tom had been working on the interstellar trade station for almost 2 years. He was one of the many maintenance workers who kept the great metal city running. The station floated in deep space like a small moon, its silver surface catching the faint light of distant stars. Ships from many worlds came and went every day, carrying goods, travelers, and strange technology from places Tom would never see. On this day, Tom's task seemed simple. A power conduit in the lower cargo sector had stopped working. Without it, one section of the storage bays would lose lighting and temperature control. That could damage the stored goods, so his supervisor told him to fix it right away. Tom carried his toolkit and followed the narrow maintenance walkway toward the bay. The place was quiet. This part of the station was rarely used. Most of the storage rooms here were locked, filled with supplies that were not needed yet. When he reached the corridor outside Cargo Bay 12, Tom saw that the door was half open. That was unusual. Normally, all unused bays were sealed. A faint humming sound came from inside. It was not the sharp buzz of machinery, but something softer, almost like a low musical tone. He hesitated. It was not part of his job to investigate strange sounds, but curiosity was a strong thing. He stepped closer and pushed the door open the rest of the way. The bay was huge. The ceiling was high enough to fit the largest cargo containers stacked, 3 levels tall. Light spilled in through a row of long panels along the ceiling. Most of the space was empty, except for a few large crates pushed against one wall. And then Tom froze. Near the center of the room stood a figure, tall beyond anything he had ever seen. She was a woman, but not human. She stood at least 4 times his height, with strong limbs and skin the color of pale bronze. Her long, dark hair fell over her shoulders in a heavy wave. Her eyes were bright amber, glowing faintly in the light from above. She was not wearing a spacesuit. Instead, she had on parts of what looked like heavy ceremonial armor. Large, curved plates of metal covered her shoulders and chest, but she was in the process of removing them. One piece was already set down on the floor beside her. Another hung loosely in her hands. Tom realized he had stepped into a moment he was never meant to see. His heart beat fast. He thought about turning and leaving, but his boot made a small scraping sound against the floor. The giantess lifted her head. Her gaze locked onto him. The humming stopped. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The only sound was the faint hum of the station's life support systems in the distance. Tom felt like a small animal caught in the sight of a predator, though her expression was not angry. It was unreadable, some mix of surprise and calculation. Slowly, the alien woman straightened to her full height. The piece of armor in her hands made a deep metallic sound as she set it down on the floor beside the first. She stepped toward him, and the ground seemed to tremble lightly under each movement. Tom's instincts told him to run, but something kept him rooted in place. Maybe it was the way she moved, steady, deliberate, not rushed. She did not look like she intended to harm him, but she did not look pleased either. When she reached the edge of the light, she crouched down so her face was level with his. Even crouching, she was taller than any human he had ever met. Her features were sharp, but graceful, her amber eyes scanning every detail of him. "You are human," she said, her voice low but strong. Tom nodded. "Yes, my name is Tom. I work on the station. I'm sorry, I didn't know anyone was here." She tilted her head, her expression still hard to read. "You entered without permission." "I was here to repair the power conduit," Tom explained. Quickly. He pointed toward the far wall. "The report said it was inside this bay. I didn't mean to intrude." The giantess studied him for another moment. Then her gaze shifted toward the door he had come through. "You saw me," she said. Simply, Tom didn't know how to answer. "Yes," he admitted. "I didn't mean to. But yes." Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in thought. She reached down and picked up the heavy chest plate again, setting it behind her as if to hide it from view. Tom noticed symbols carved into the armor, strange shapes and lines that looked almost like a flowing script. "What is your name?" she asked. "Tom." "I am Riala," she said. Her voice softened just a little when she spoke her own name, as if it carried. "Wait," Tom nodded, unsure what else to say. His hands stayed visible at his sides, showing he carried no weapon. He didn't know if that mattered to her, but it felt safer that way. Riala leaned in closer. "You should not be here, Tom. There are things on this station that are not meant for your kind to see." Tom swallowed. "I understand. I'll leave if you want me to." Instead of telling him to go, she studied him again. The air between them felt heavy. It was as if she was deciding something important in her mind. Finally, she said, "You will stay. I must speak with you." Tom was surprised. "Speak with me? About what?" "You are already involved," Riala said. "You stepped into this place at the wrong moment. Now you must hear the truth." Tom didn't know what truth she meant, but something in her voice told him this was not a request. He felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. He had come here to fix a power conduit, but now he stood face to face with a giantess from another world, one who clearly carried secrets. Somewhere far above, the lights flickered for a moment, and the hum of the station grew a little louder. Tom took a deep breath. Whatever happened next, he knew his life on the station had just changed. Riala did not move for several seconds. Her golden eyes stayed fixed on Tom, studying every detail of his face as if she could read his thoughts. The large chamber felt colder now, though Tom could not tell if it was the air or the way she was. Looking at him, she straightened again, her full height towering above him. The sound of her armor plates shifting echoed in the empty bay. Tom felt small and exposed, like a tiny worker standing before a great statue that had suddenly come to life. "You did not run," Riala said. Tom kept his voice steady. "You did not attack." That made her pause. Her expression changed slightly, almost like the beginning of a faint smile, but it disappeared as quickly as it appeared. She took 2 slow steps toward him, her shadow stretching over his boots. "What will you do with what you saw?" she asked. Tom frowned. "I don't plan to do anything. I didn't mean to disturb you. I was only here for the repair." Riala tilted her head, her dark hair sliding over her shoulder. "In my world, to see a warrior without armor is to witness something private. Some would see it as weakness. Others would use it as a weapon against that warrior. I'm not here to hurt you," Tom said firmly. "I'm just a maintenance worker. I fix things, that's all." Her gaze did not soften. "That is why this is strange. You are small, unarmed, and yet you walk into a place you do not belong without fear." Tom wanted to tell her it was not bravery, only curiosity, but he thought that might sound foolish. "Maybe I just trust that you won't harm me." This time, Riala's expression shifted again, but it was not quite a smile. "Trust is a rare thing between our kinds." She stepped away from him, circling slowly as if testing his reaction. Her footsteps were heavy, and the sound of her boots on the floor echoed through the bay. She stopped beside the wall where the crate stood and touched one lightly with her fingers. The crate was as tall as Tom's chest, but it looked small beside her. "You said you came to repair the conduit," she said without turning to look at him. "Yes," Tom replied. "The report said it was inside this bay. That's why I came in." Riala placed her hand on a panel near the crate. A faint light blinked, and the crate's surface shimmered, revealing a hidden console. "The conduit you speak of is not broken," she said. "It was switched off, deliberately." Tom took a step closer, confused. "Why?" She looked at him over her shoulder. "To keep this bay dark and empty, to keep people away. It was my doing." Tom's mind raced. "You're hiding here?" Riala turned to face him fully. "Yes." And now you have found me. The room seemed even larger now, the air thicker. Tom realized that whatever situation he had stumbled into was far bigger than a simple repair job. Why? He asked quietly. Her eyes met his. Because my enemies search for me. They want to take my command, my honor and my life. I cannot allow them to find me until the time is right. Tom felt a chill run down his spine. And if they find you here? Then there will be conflict, Riala said, one that could harm more than just me. They stood in silence for a moment. Tom could hear the steady hum of the stations, life support systems, and the faint creak of metal as the great structure moved ever so slightly in the vacuum of space. You could have stopped me from coming in, Tom said at last. Why didn't you? Riala walked toward him, stopping just a few feet away. Because when you saw me, you did not turn away in fear. You stood and faced me. That tells me you are not like the others. Tom did not know if that was a compliment or a warning. So what happens now? You cannot leave this bay and speak of what you saw, Riala said. Her tone was calm, but there was no doubt it was a command. I wasn't planning to, Tom replied. I don't want trouble. Her gaze softened slightly. If you keep my secret, I will trust you. And if I trust you, I will tell you why I am here and what must be done. Tom nodded. All right, I'll keep it to myself. For the first time, she gave him a clear sign of approval. A slow, respectful nod. Good. Then you will listen. She motioned for him to follow her toward the far corner of the bay. There, behind the crates, Tom saw a makeshift space, an area with a large folded cloth on the floor, a small storage unit, and what looked like a strange weapon leaning against the wall. This is where I have been living since my ship docked here, Riala said. I cannot walk the station freely. Too many eyes, too many questions. I stay here until the signal comes. What signal? Tom asked. She did not answer right away. Instead, she looked toward the ceiling as if checking for something unseen. The one that will tell me it is time to return to my world. Until then, I remain hidden. Tom realized the danger she must be in. This was not just a warrior resting between battles. This was someone in exile, hunted by her own people. What do you want from me? Tom asked cautiously. Her amber eyes met his again. You know these corridors better than most. You can move unseen. If trouble comes before the signal, I will need someone to guide me out. You could be that person. Tom hesitated. Helping her could mean breaking station rules, but leaving her here, alone and vulnerable, felt wrong. He took a breath. If it comes to that, I'll help you. Riala studied him for a moment longer, then nodded again. Then we have an understanding. The tension in the air eased slightly. Tom felt his shoulders relax, though the weight of what he had just agreed to settled heavily on his mind. Somewhere outside the bay, a distant clang of metal rang through the station. Riala's gaze shifted toward the sound instantly, her body tensing like a drawn bow. Someone is nearby, she said quietly. Tom turned toward the door, his instincts sharpening. The quiet bay no longer felt safe. Whatever happened next, he knew he was now part of something he could not easily walk away from. The sound of metal echoed again, closer this time. Tom's eyes went to the open bay door. Riala's posture changed instantly. Her shoulders squared, and her hand moved toward the weapon leaning against the wall. Tom's voice was low. Should I close the door? Riala shook her head. If you close it now, they will know someone is inside. We wait. The footsteps became clearer, heavy against the station's metal flooring. Tom guessed it was only one person, but he could not be sure. Riala stepped back into the shadows, her tall frame almost blending into the dim corner of the bay. Her amber eyes stayed locked on the entrance. A figure appeared in the doorway, a human in a gray uniform. He looked around, holding a small data pad in one hand. His expression showed surprise when he saw Tom. "Hey, what are you doing here?" the man asked. Tom forced his voice to sound casual. "Repair job. The report said the power conduit in this bay was down." The man frowned and checked his data pad. "Strange. This bay has been marked as empty for months." Tom shrugged. "Maybe it's just a mistake in the system. I'll check the panel and be out of here." The man seemed uncertain, but he nodded slowly. "All right, just don't stay too long. The section is supposed to be locked." When he turned to leave, Riala stayed silent and still. Only after his footsteps faded into the distance did she step out from the shadows. "You handled that well," she said. "You did not give me away." Tom looked at her. "I'm not interested in getting you caught." She studied him again with that same unreadable gaze. "Good. That means my choice to trust you was not wrong." Tom glanced at the weapon she had been ready to grab. It was unlike anything he had seen, long, sleek, with glowing lines along its surface. "Were you going to use that if he came closer?" Riala walked to the weapon and rested her hand on it. "Only if necessary. I do not harm without cause, but I am ready to defend myself." Tom thought about the size difference between her and the man who had walked in. "You probably wouldn't need a weapon." Her lips curved slightly, almost like a small smile. "Perhaps not. But strength is not the same as victory. A weapon can speak more loudly than fists." Tom leaned against a nearby crate, his curiosity growing. "You said earlier that I'm already involved. What exactly does that mean?" Riala turned to face him fully. "It means that now you have seen me. You are part of the truth I carry. If my enemies find me, they will not stop to ask if you helped me or not. You will be seen as part of my side." Tom felt the weight of her words. "So either I'm with you or I'm in danger anyway." "Yes," Riala said plainly, "but being with me gives you a chance to survive." That was not exactly comforting, but Tom could see her point. "All right, then I guess I'm with you." She nodded once as if sealing an agreement. "Good, then I will tell you more." Riala sat on the edge of a crate, the metal creaking under her weight. "On my world, the Taran, there are many clans. I lead one of them, or I did. Another leader, a rival, wants to take control. He believes I stand in his way. That is why I am here, waiting for allies to send word that I can return." Tom asked, "Why not just leave the station now?" Riala's eyes narrowed. "Because I would not make it past the docking rings. My rival has placed watchers there. They would follow me, and worse, they might attack your station. I will not risk innocent lives." Tom respected that. "So you're just hiding until the right moment?" "Yes," she said. "But hiding is not my nature. Every day I wait. I feel the weight of my people's fate pressing on me." He could hear the tension in her voice. It was not fear, but the frustration of someone forced to be still when they were meant to act. Before Tom could respond, a faint vibration ran through the floor. Riala stood at once, her head turning toward the source. "Another ship has docked," she said. "Heavy class, not a trader." Tom listened, but heard nothing beyond the usual hum of the station. "How can you tell?" Riala pointed to her ear. "Taran hearing is sharp. That was a warship's engine tone." Tom's stomach tightened. "Do you think it's here for you?" "I do not know," she said, "but we must be ready." She moved quickly to the storage unit and pulled out a small metallic device. It looked like a silver disc with thin lines etched into it. She pressed it into the wall near the crates, and it gave off a faint light before vanishing into the metal. "What is that?" Tom asked. "A sensor," Riala said. "It will tell me if anyone enters this sector." Tom realized she was preparing for trouble. If they come, do we fight or run? That will depend on who comes, she replied. The two of them stayed, quiet for a while. Tom worked on the conduit to keep up the appearance that he was doing his assigned job, while Riala moved silently in the background, checking her weapon and other supplies. After some time, the sensor pulsed once, a dim glow. Moving across its surface, Riala stepped to his side. Someone has entered the sector. Tom put down his tools. The same guy from before? She shook her head. No. The steps are heavier. This is someone in armor. The sound reached Tom's ears then, measured, steady, and loud. Whoever it was, they were walking straight toward Cargo Bay 12. Riala's hand tightened on her weapon. Stay behind me. The steps grew louder until they stopped right outside the door. For a long moment, there was silence. Then the door slid open, and a tall figure in dark armor stepped inside. The helmet concealed their face, but the way they scanned the room felt purposeful. They looked at Tom briefly, then their gaze shifted to the crates, to the corners, and finally to Riala. The tension in the air grew heavy. The armored figure stepped fully into the cargo bay. The door slid shut behind them with a hiss. The sound seemed to cut the room off from the rest of the station. Tom felt his heartbeat quicken. The stranger's armor was dark gray with deep green markings running down the arms and chest. The helmet had a single amber visor that hid their eyes but reflected the bay's light. The figure's voice came through a small speaker in the helmet, deep and steady. Riala of the Taran. Riala did not move. You have found me, she said. Tom could feel the tension between them like an invisible rope pulled tight. The stranger took 3 steps closer. Each step was slow, deliberate, and heavy against the metal floor. You should have returned to face judgment, the armored figure said. My rival's judgment is no justice, Riala replied. Her tone was calm, but her hand rested near her weapon. I will not bow to false claims. Tom stayed behind her, resisting the urge to speak. This was a conversation between two people who knew each other's worlds and rules. He was the outsider, and one wrong word might bring trouble. The stranger's head tilted slightly, as if studying Tom. And who is this? A guard? An ally? Riala said without looking back. One who knows nothing of your politics, so do not threaten him. The visor reflected a flash of light as the stranger turned back to her. You endanger the station by staying here. Others are looking for you. Some will not speak first. They will strike. Riala's voice hardened. Then they will find I am not easy prey. The stranger stepped even closer, now only a few paces away. Tom noticed their right hand hovered near a device on their belt. It was not quite a weapon, but it looked like something that could become one very quickly. You cannot stay hidden forever, the stranger said. I only need to stay hidden until the signal comes, Riala replied. Then I will leave this place, and your leader will have no reason to pursue me here. The stranger gave a low sound, almost like a sigh through the speaker. The signal you wait for may never come, and if it does, it will already be too late. Your enemies grow stronger while you hide. Riala stood taller, her voice sharper now. Sometimes survival is the first victory. I will not risk the lives of those who shelter me. Tom listened closely. She had just confirmed what he already suspected. She was staying here not only to protect herself, but to protect the station from being drawn into her conflict. The stranger straightened as if making a decision. Then hear my warning. The warship that docked is not here for trade. It carries soldiers loyal to your rival. They will begin searching sector by sector. It is only a matter of time before they find this bay. Tom's stomach tightened. How much time? He asked, without thinking. The stranger turned toward him. Hours, maybe less. Riala glanced at Tom briefly, then back to the armored figure. You did not have to warn me. Why risk it? I have no wish to see the humans dragged into Terran politics, the stranger said. Their station is not a battlefield. If you care for them, you will leave before the soldiers arrive. Riala's reply came slowly. I cannot leave yet, but I will move if the danger grows too near. The stranger studied her for another moment. You have a stubborn spirit. Perhaps that is why you still live. Without another word, they turned and walked toward the door. The heavy steps echoed until the door opened and they stepped out. The sound faded down the corridor until there was only silence again. Tom let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They seemed not like an enemy. They are not my enemy, Riala said, but they serve a system that is. Their warning is a gift, though it does not change my path. Tom frowned. It changes mine. If soldiers are coming here, we can't just wait. We need a plan. She nodded slightly. Agreed. But our plan must be one they do not expect. Riala walked back to her hidden corner and began checking her supplies. She lifted a small black case and opened it, revealing several devices, round, flat, and covered in faintly glowing patterns. What are those? Tom asked. Tracking jammers, Riala replied. They will make it harder for the soldiers to detect me even if they search close by. But they must be placed in several locations around this sector. Tom's eyes widened. You're going to plant them yourself? She looked at him with a faint spark in her eyes. No, you are. Tom blinked. Me? Why me? You move easily through the maintenance passages. You can place these without attracting attention. I am too large to walk unseen. He hesitated, looking down at the devices. If they catch me planting these, I'll have to explain a lot of things. They will not catch you, she said with certainty. Move quickly, avoid open halls, and return before the next patrol passes. Tom picked up one of the devices. It was surprisingly light, and the glowing lines shifted slightly under his touch. How many? 4, Riala said. Place them in each corner of this sector. Once active, they will cover the entire area. Tom nodded. All right, I'll do it. Riala gave him a short, firm nod of respect. Good. You are proving yourself, Tom. He tucked the devices into his tool bag, then moved toward the door. Before he left, he glanced back. Riala stood tall in the dim light, her hand resting on her weapon, watching him go. There was no fear in her eyes, only trust. Tom slipped into the corridor, keeping his pace steady but not slow. The station felt different now. Each turn and shadow seemed sharper, more dangerous. Somewhere in these halls, soldiers loyal to Riala's rival were beginning their search. As he moved toward the first placement point, Tom realized something important. He was no longer just a maintenance worker on a routine job. He was part of something much larger. Something that might change not only his life, but the future of 2 worlds. The alarm echoed loudly through the corridors of the station. Red lights flashed, painting the metal walls in an urgent glow. Tom felt his heart pounding as he followed Riala toward the back exit of the cargo bay. The moment had come. Riala moved, with a quiet confidence that belied her massive size. Every step she took caused the floor to tremble slightly. She carried her weapon at the ready, eyes sharp and scanning. Tom struggled to keep pace but stayed close behind her. Suddenly, a group of soldiers appeared at the far end of the corridor. Their dark armor glistened under the flashing lights. The leader held a pulse rifle, aiming it with steady hands. Riala stopped and turned to face them. You are not welcome here, she said, her voice calm but powerful. The leader sneered behind his visor. Riala, you must surrender. Your rebellion ends here. Riala's amber eyes narrowed. I will not surrender to traitors. Without warning, she sprang forward. Her movements were fast and precise. Despite her size, she moved like a trained fighter, each step deliberate. She swung a massive arm and knocked the leader's rifle aside. The soldiers opened fire, energy, blasts, lighting the corridor. Riala used her armor plates to shield herself, but did not stay protected for long. She charged forward, breaking through the line with strength that sent several soldiers stumbling. Tom ducked behind a metal crate, watching in awe. He had never seen anyone fight like this. Riala was not just powerful, she was smart. She used the station's structure to her advantage, pushing soldiers into narrow passages where their numbers counted for less. One soldier aimed at Tom, but before the shot could fire, Riala threw a heavy metal pipe. It spun through the air and struck the soldier's helmet with a solid clang. The soldier dropped his weapon and fled. Tom caught his breath and moved closer to Riala. "What now?" She glanced back. "We must reach the service tunnels. They offer cover, but we must be quick." They raced down the corridor, the sounds of pursuit close behind. Tom's legs burned, but he kept running. He trusted Riala's knowledge of the station's hidden paths. At a junction, they split. Riala took the left tunnel while Tom went right. "Stay safe," she called over her shoulder. Tom hesitated but nodded. His route was darker and tighter. He slipped through the narrow passage, using the small tools on his belt to open a maintenance hatch. He climbed inside, feeling the cold air rush past him. In the tunnel, he paused to listen. Footsteps echoed not far behind. He had to move faster. Meanwhile, Riala led her pursuers on a chase through twisting halls. Her size was a disadvantage in the tight tunnels, but she used bursts of speed and powerful strikes to slow the soldiers down. Tom found another hatch leading to the central control room. He opened it carefully and climbed through. The room was empty, except for flickering monitors and consoles. He accessed a terminal and sent a coded message to the station's security team. "Unauthorized military forces detected in Sector 7. Request immediate backup." The response was quick. "Backup en route. Hold position." Tom felt a surge of hope. Reinforcements were coming. Riala's voice crackled in his comm device. "Are you safe?" "For now," Tom replied. "Backup is on the way." "Good," she said. "We cannot hold them much longer." Suddenly, the corridor exploded with energy blasts. Riala grunted as a beam grazed her shoulder armor. She gritted her teeth and charged again, knocking two soldiers aside. Tom watched the monitors. He saw the soldiers closing in on Riala's location. He hurried to the nearest control panel and activated the station's emergency lockdown, sealing bulkhead doors to slow the enemy's advance. The station's walls rumbled as heavy doors slid shut. The soldiers found themselves trapped in smaller sections, their movements restricted. Riala used the confusion to her advantage. She burst through a heavy door and reached the docking bay. A sleek ship awaited, engines humming softly. She sent a quick signal to Tom. "Meet me here." Tom moved swiftly through the corridors, avoiding patrols thanks to the jammers he planted earlier. The station was becoming a maze of closed doors and alarms, but he knew the way. At the docking bay, Riala stood ready beside her ship. Her armor was scratched, and her breathing was heavy, but her eyes burned with determination. Tom reached her side. "They're blocked off for now. Backup is coming." Riala smiled briefly. "Then it is time." She stepped into the ship's cockpit and began preparations for takeoff. Tom watched as the engines roared to life. Outside, the soldiers gathered near the locked bulkheads, frustrated and unable to follow. The ship lifted off smoothly, moving away from the station into the endless black of space. Tom felt a mix of relief and awe. He had witnessed a fierce warrior fight for her survival. He had stood by her side. Riala's voice came over the comm one last time. "Thank you, Tom. Your courage saved more than just my life today. You have my respect." Tom nodded, even though she could not see him. "And you have mine." As the ship disappeared into the stars, Tom returned to the station, ready to face whatever new challenges the future might bring. The station was quieter now. The alarms had stopped, and the flashing red lights dimmed to soft blues. Tom stood near the entrance to Cargo Bay 12, watching the empty corridor. The echoes of battle and footsteps had faded, leaving only the hum of machinery. Riala's ship had gone into the dark stretch of space hours ago. Tom wondered what awaited her beyond the stars, a return to her people, or more battles still to come. He rubbed his tired hands together and looked around the bay. The crates and equipment were the same, but everything felt changed. The secrets he had uncovered, the danger he faced, and the trust he earned. It all made the station feel less like a place for repairs, and more like the center of something greater. Tom turned as footsteps approached. It was Mira, one of the station's security officers. Her face was serious, but her eyes held a flicker of respect. "You did well, Tom," she said. "Not many could have stayed calm in that situation." Tom smiled tiredly. "I had good reasons." Mira nodded. "Riala's story, it changes how we see things. There are more beyond our world, and not all of them are enemies." Tom looked back toward the docking ring, still visible through the large windows. The stars were bright tonight, untouched by the station's lights. "We helped her," he said. "Not just for her, but for all of us. If we can understand each other, maybe we can avoid wars." Mira agreed. "The station council will want to hear about this. They need to know what's happening out there." Tom sighed. "I'm ready to tell them, but I hope they listen." Days passed, and the station returned to normal duties: repairs, shipments, and the quiet routines of space life. Yet beneath the surface, things had shifted. Tom found himself more alert, more aware. Every shadow, every sound could mean more now. He often thought of Riala and her strength. She was not just a warrior, but a leader who fought for her people's future. One evening, as Tom finished his shift, a message appeared on his personal terminal. It was from Riala. "Tom, you showed courage beyond the call of duty. The path ahead is long, but you are not alone. I will return when the time is right. Until then, keep safe." Tom stared at the message, a mixture of pride and hope swelling inside him. He typed a reply. "I will be ready. Thank you, Riala." The days turned into weeks. Tom worked on the station but also prepared himself for the unknown. He studied alien technologies left behind, learned new languages, and kept an eye on unusual activity. The station council held meetings about the Terran clans and the conflict that had briefly touched their home. They decided to increase defenses and look for peaceful contact. Tom was asked to share his experience. His calm and clear words helped the council see the importance of trust, even between very different beings. One morning, as Tom walked along the observation deck, the station's communications buzzed suddenly. A ship was approaching. It was not hostile. It bore the markings of a Terran flag. Riala's return had come sooner than anyone expected. Tom felt a thrill of anticipation. The future was uncertain, but the door had opened. Maybe this time, both worlds could find a way to live side by side. As the new ship docked, Tom stood ready to meet his friend again. The giant warrior who had changed everything. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, he felt hope. Hope for peace. Hope for unity. Hope for a new beginning. Tom moved through the narrow maintenance corridor with his tool bag over his shoulder. Inside, the 4 tracking jammers rested between wrenches and power cells. The corridor walls were dimly lit, lined with pipes and cables. The air was warmer. Here, carrying the faint smell of metal and machine oil. He knew these back routes well. Years of fixing broken conduits and faulty vents had taught him which turns were quick and which paths stayed out of sight. Still, today felt different. The usual hum of the station seemed louder, as if reminding him that soldiers could be nearby. The first placement point was a service alcove behind Cargo Bay 9. Tom crouched and pulled the first jammer from his bag. It was the size of a plate, smooth and cold in his hands. Remembering Riala's words, he pressed it against the wall. The glowing lines on the device shifted, then sank into the metal surface. A faint blue ring flashed once before fading away. 1. Down, he whispered to himself. He closed the panel and stepped back into the corridor, heading for the second point. This route took him past a wide junction where 3 halls met. Tom slowed, listening. From the left hall came the steady rhythm of heavy boots. Soldiers. Quickly he ducked behind a stack of supply crates. 2 figures in dark armor walked past. Speaking in a low language he didn't understand. Their helmets had the same single amber visor he had seen earlier. Tom held his breath until the sound of their boots faded into the distance. When the path was clear, he crossed the junction and reached the next service hatch. Inside, the second jammer went into place with the same soft flash. 2 down. The third point was trickier. It was located near the docking ring, an area more likely to have patrols. Tom used a narrow inspection tunnel to get closer. The tunnel walls pressed in around him, and he had to crouch the whole way. He reached the small hatch that opened into the docking corridor. Through the narrow slit, he saw 2 more soldiers standing guard near an equipment cart. They weren't moving, but their presence made the job harder. Tom waited. A crew of human dock workers passed by, pushing a large container. The soldiers turned to watch them. Tom used that moment to slip out, move along the wall, and press the jammer into place behind a power conduit. The blue flash came and went. He stepped back into the tunnel before the soldiers turned again. 3 down, 1 to go. The last point was the far corner of the sector, near a quiet storage room. Tom reached it without trouble and planted the final jammer. As soon as it activated, a faint pulse ran through the wall, barely noticeable, but it gave him a strange sense of completion. With the 4 devices active, the sector was now shielded from tracking scans. If Riala stayed inside this zone, it would be far harder for the enemy soldiers to locate her. Tom retraced his steps, staying to the shadows and side paths. As he approached Cargo Bay 12, he slowed again. Voices echoed faintly ahead. He peered around the corner. 2 soldiers stood at the bay entrance, scanning the corridor with a handheld device. The amber light from their visors flickered across the walls. Tom's pulse quickened. If they stepped inside, they might find Riala. The jammers would block certain scans, but a visual check could still reveal her. He reached for the small comm device clipped to his belt, a station-issued tool for contacting his team. Riala had given him a code earlier, a simple tap pattern that would let her know danger was close. He tapped it twice, paused, then tapped once. From inside the bay there was no sound, but Tom knew she had received the signal. The soldiers spoke, briefly to each other, then moved on down the hall. Tom waited until their footsteps faded before slipping through the door. Inside, Riala stood near her corner, weapon in hand. Her eyes met his immediately. The devices? All placed, Tom said. They work. I had to avoid a few patrols, but they didn't see me. Riala's gaze softened slightly. You have done well. Now we can hold this ground a little longer. Tom set his bag down. But they're already close. 2 soldiers were right outside before I came in. If they keep searching, it's only a matter of time. Yes, Riala agreed. But now they will waste that time looking in the wrong places. Tom looked at her, still amazed at how calm she seemed. You've done this kind of thing before, haven't you? Her lips curved in the faintest smile. Many times. I have spent my life planning for both attack and escape. Both require patience. He took a seat on an empty crate. So what now? Riala rested her weapon against the wall and crouched beside him. Even crouched, she was taller than he was standing. Now we wait. The signal I spoke of may come at any moment. When it does, we must be ready to move quickly." Tom nodded slowly. Waiting was not his strength, but he knew rushing out into the open would be worse. For a while, the only sounds were the quiet hum of the bay and the faint vibrations of the station around them. Then, without warning, a distant alarm began to sound. 3 short bursts repeating. Riala's head snapped toward the door. "That is not a station alert. That is a boarding call." Tom stood. "Boarding call! You mean—" "Yes," Riala said. "More soldiers have arrived." The calm in her voice was gone now. She moved to the storage unit, pulling out a small pack and fastening it across her back. Her weapon slid into a holster at her side. Tom felt his throat tighten. "Does this mean we leave now?" Her amber eyes locked on his. "No. It means we prepare for the choice. If they find us, we fight our way out. If not, we slip away unseen. Either way, the moment is near." Tom nodded, his mind racing. He had never imagined his day would end with him helping a giant alien warrior prepare for either escape or battle. Yet here he was, part of something far bigger than his usual life of tools and wires. And somewhere beyond the bay walls, soldiers loyal to Riala's rival were closing in.